Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So, as I collect more information and get better evidence, I just get more confused. It's one of these things that's like, it's frustrating as hell and shit, right? Because I'm trying to find the right evidence so that I can make these videos. And when I make these videos, I have to try and go as fast as I can to make them interesting for the people to watch and stuff. And it's hard for me to, because I don't do any editing really and stuff. So it's hard I don't have the time to put together quality videos and stuff. And so it's like, I'm not writing this stuff down. It's like, I'll be searching this stuff and then it's like, bam, I make the fucking video. So it's not like I've spent a lot of time thinking about like how I'm going to make like this video right now that I'm making. It's like, I'm just winging it. Right? And so that's what I'm always doing. I'm kind of just winging it. I'm using this present information that I have, combining it with the information that I already have acquired, right? And then I just kind of get in here and say, okay, let's go. And I'll have a couple things I set up and I just wing it. I just go for it, right? So in the process of doing this stuff, I make mistakes. And I know that I'm making mistakes, which I don't like to do because I don't like to put out bad information. But I want the public to understand that what you're seeing is like, okay, you're not reading a book that I didn't have the time, like if I put out a book, it's like, well, that means I put the time and effort into building up all this stuff. It's a different type of thing. What you're seeing is an investigation as it's occurring. It's all still occurring. And what happened, the big problem with this is one of the things is that even from the beginning, I've been saying I'm dealing with a lot of people's history. And so I have all these different people and the dates and stuff. And then the other thing is that I am actually dealing with the form of a conspiracy that has occurred. And since this conspiracy has occurred, you've got lies. There's all kinds of lies. When you're talking about the Jackson 5, there's all kinds of these weird lies. And then I got to figure out what are the lies and what aren't the lies. It's hard to do this shit, right? But I use my foundation as knowing that Diana Ross is Michael's mom and that Smokey's the father, that it occurred right at the development of when Motown was occurring. So I have some basic foundations for me to stand on and stuff, right? But then I have to search through all the dates, and like I said, it's confusing, there's a lot to it. And what happens is, like, even when I'm just trying to put like a quick video together like I am right now, what happens is I have so much stuff that I want to explain, but I can't bring it all up because it would just take way freaking too long. And then, so that's what happens with these videos. It's like they're tricky and stuff, right? And I don't always get all the information I want to get in there, but I hope that the people understand that you're watching a investigation in its process. It's developing. It's always developing. And at times when I find myself that I've made a mistake about some of my conclusions and stuff, I want to fix that, but I don't want to get rid of the old videos because I want you to see how the investigation was proceeding the whole time and how it developed. And I want you to be able to see like the mistakes I made in the past because I want to show how difficult this whole process is being and stuff, right? So, okay, let me try. So it's like, I want to explain some more. So let me explain this one thing. So, one of the videos that, there's a page called, it's Tom Maros. And so Tom Maros has done he gets these good interviews with people, and you get with one-on-one interviews, and he gets some good information because he lets the people talk and tell their stories, and they give you some good information. So one of the videos that he done was with, so there's the Gladys Knight and the Pips. So it was one of the Pips, okay? He was doing an interview with one of the Pips, and the Pips guy, he explained that in the process of the Pips coming to Motown, because they were already a known established act before they got to Motown, okay? Then they came and signed with Motown. So a couple things happened there, and one of the things that happened is when they were getting ready to sign the contract, that they found out that Motown was trying to charge the band, the Pips, like a scouting fee, like a discovering, like that they had scouted them out, like so which is like, well, then the Pips are like, what do you mean? We're already an established act. You didn't have to scout us out and discover us and shit. You weren't out, like, you didn't find us. We were already an established act. But Motown tried to charge them for whatever employees or whatever time they spent trying to get the band to come to Motown. Motown was going to charge them for that. And they said, no, we're not paying that. We're already an established band. You didn't have to spend any time to come find us. We were already out there doing our thing, right? So what I'm trying to show you is that these are the kind of things that I understand, that this is what Motown, how they're scandalous. Berry Gordy was a ruthless businessman, and every dollar that he could take from those acts, he took it. He would take it. And so there's like a thing like where he explained that, so when the Pips came to Motown, they purchased their own house. And he had explained that he would talk to other people in Motown, and the other people in Motown would say, you guys own your own house? And they'd say, yeah. And then the other people would tell him, they'd say, oh, we rent a house from Motown. So what Motown would do is, Motown would buy a house, and then they would rent it to the acts that they had signed. But in reality, what's happening was the acts that were renting those houses were basically buying houses for Motown. That's like, it's scandalous. These are the things that were occurring. And then another thing that happened with the Gladys Knight and the Pips is that they were smart. Like they were trying to do everything right. And they had like their accountant or their manager or something. I'd have to go find exactly and to go hear him actually say it. But I know that they were putting money away for their taxes. They would always like put money away to make sure that their taxes got paid properly and everything, right? So then what happens is when their contract ran out with Motown and it was time to renew their contract, it turns out that that money that they had been putting aside for the taxes, that their manager says, oh no, well, we had to spend that money. And it's like, God damn. And it's like, and then Motown, so they had a tax problem. It was, and you said it was quite a bit, it was like $100,000 or something, you know, back then it was a lot of money. And so they thought, they had always thought that they were paying their taxes. They always thought that they had put money aside, but then the guy said, oh no, we had to use that for your hotel rooms and your travel expenses and stuff, right? They screwed them and shit, right? So then it's time for the Pips to renew their contract at Motown. Motown's trying to renew them, and the Pips are trying to leave. The Gladys Knight and the Pips, they want to leave and stuff. They're going to leave Motown. And then they find out they got this tax problem. So then Motown says, oh, well, if you guys re-sign your contract to Motown, we'll take care of your tax problem, right? So this is what I'm saying. This is the scandalous business tactics that were going on with Berry Gordy. He's scandalous. Like, for one thing, that like, I know the Supremes name, that the name the Supremes, Motown owns that name. And what happened, I've heard the way that they said that they had to come up with a new name, but not only did they come up with the new name, is that they had to sign over the rights to that name to Motown. The Motown had to be in control of that name. And so with understanding that too, I know that when the Jackson 5 signed to Motown, it was because when they left, they're just called the Jacksons. And you don't ever hear the Jacksons referring themselves as the Jackson 5. That's why they called themselves the Jacksons, because what happened is Motown owns the name the Jackson 5. Now I have to go and check to find out exactly. I've never proven that exactly, but just from my understanding of what happened is like, that's what happened, is that Motown owned, see, like, so when the Jackson 5, they were the Jackson 5 before they got to Motown, but what happens is when you come to Motown, Berry Gordy forced you to sign a contract to relinquish the ownership of your name to Motown, because he knew that the name was extremely valuable, like for all the product merchandising and stuff like that. Just the name alone, the Jackson 5, just the name, if you own that name, that's very valuable. You get to license that name for all the Jackson 5 products that are ever going to exist. So there's stuff, that's why when the Jacksons left, they called themselves the Jacksons. They weren't calling themselves the Jackson 5 because the name was owned by Motown. They left Motown, they couldn't use the name anymore. But they were the Jackson 5 before they got to Motown. But I'm sure that when they got there, Berry made them relinquish the ownership of that name. You know, that's what I'm saying. These were scandalous things that were, and he was doing it to the Jackson 5 too. So part of like what I want to say too is that when the Jacksons moved to LA and they were living in Diana Ross's house, okay? And so I've heard there's a combination too, that they lived in a Berry Gordy's house and Diana Ross's house. So Diana Ross, that's the first house she ever bought. She had just bought her first house in Beverly Hills, and her mother and her brother, I believe is the story I've heard her say, that they were living in that house. And that's her first house she ever bought. And so then she's just going to invite this Jackson family to come into the house, but the thing is, Berry Gordy would not have allowed that to happen, because Berry Gordy would have bought a house for himself, and he would have had the Jacksons living in that house, and he would have been charging them rent so that the Jacksons are buying a house for Berry Gordy. That's what he would have done, exactly. So Berry Gordy would have not allowed the Jacksons to live in Diana Ross's house. Plus, why would Diana invite this family into her house, you know? And but when you understand that she's Michael's mother, now you understand that she's got power over Berry Gordy too. So she wanted to spend time with Michael. You know, that's exactly why the Jacksons moved into her house, and why these things occur is because it's Diana's trying to spend time with Michael, and Diana has a lot of power over Berry Gordy and stuff. So there's all kinds of stuff like that when you get into the technicals of what's actually going on, because these people are telling lies. There's weird stories, there's truths, and then there's lies. And they're doing all this weird combination of stuff. So for me to figure out the truths and the lies, it's really tricky and shit, right? So what happened is I came across this here, and it had really good dates. I've been looking for these exact dates, you know, so I found these exact dates. But in finding this, it's more confusing and stuff too. And so right here, I'm going to read this part here. It says, the Jackson 5 passed the audition and signed with the label on July 26, 1968. Okay, so the Jackson 5, it was July 23rd of 68. That's when the Jackson 5 go and do their audition at Motown. That first audition that is recorded. There's a recording of it. And the reason it's recorded is because Berry Gordy's not there. He's not actually there. They recorded it for him, but he's not there on the scene. Like in the movie, they portray like Berry Gordy's there, but he wasn't there. And so these are things too about that. Berry Gordy never would have signed this band, the Jackson 5. Like the whole band and stuff, all these kids. First of all, you've got all these kids who are under 18, and they've got a father who's like, what is known as like a stage, they call them stage mothers, you know, stage father. And he's a demanding type of person. So I don't believe at all that Berry Gordy ever would have dealt with Joseph and all these kids, because he's got to send them to school. There's all kinds of rules when you're dealing with minors and stuff. And I've proven that Berry Gordy, after he dealt with Stevie Wonder, he was like, I'm never doing that again. I don't want children acts. And he demanded everybody to be 18. The only one he ever did it for was Stevie Wonder. But, you know, Stevie Wonder was like a freak type of thing, you know. He was like, okay, let's give this kid a try. But now, so Michael Jackson, if Michael Jackson's talent so good, but see, the thing is, Michael Jackson, his singing, it's like you don't know what his voice is going to turn into as he develops into an adult. You don't understand, is this just a fluke thing as a kid? And that's big reasons why. But you see, but Stevie Wonder's playing the piano and he's blind. He's got like, you know, that's a different thing, okay, right? And he still, after he did that, he said, I don't ever want to do that again. Okay, but then this whole Jackson 5 group comes in, and you're dealing with a kid who's got a great voice, but you don't know what his voice is going to transition in, and you're going to have to deal with that process of the voice transitioning and stuff, right? Plus you got the whole family, plus you got Joe you got to deal with, right? So I know personally, I know that Berry Gordy would not have done that. There's no way, and if he ever would have signed any of them, it just would have been Michael. Because he already had a band. He's got all his musicians. He's got the writers who are going to be writing all the songs. He's got all these people, the crew that can do all of this stuff of what the Jacksons would have done. He didn't need them. He never needed them. And so, but the only reason is because it's the whole big story of what's going on, and that's how they get over there and they sign to the thing. But then there's the other big thing is that the Jackson 5 are under contract to Steeltown Records at the time of this audition. So right there, as soon as Berry Gordy would have found out, oh, well, these kids, he would have found out they're under contract to another record label. That's another big thing, a big obstacle. You've got all these obstacles that Berry Gordy did not want kids acts. He's got a whole family of kids in this one, plus you got the father, and then the Michael's the obvious talent that you can just remove Michael and sign him. Plus the Jackson 5 are under contract to Steeltown. It's like I can clearly see that there's no way possible that this would, and then like I said, when they moved to LA, he allows them to live in Diana Ross's house when he can be charging them rent and making them buy a house for him. All of these things are like things that I know. It's like the story they're telling you is bullshit. But my story is the one that clears it up when you understand that Diana and Smokey are the actual parents of Michael, and then that they gave Michael to the Jackson families because they're obligated to them, and that's how you can see that that's how they had the power and leverage to make all of this stuff occur and stuff, right? And so here, let me read on this stuff now and stuff. And so yeah, so the thing with the Jacksons, they were still under contract with Steeltown for another 6 months. At the time here where it says they signed, because it says they signed with the label on July 26, 1968. And it's like, well, that's like tricky because, and so I've heard him say too, they signed a 1-year contract, and then after that they signed a 7-year deal. Now that 7-year deal, that's the real contract because that's after the Steeltown contract ran out. But so like right here when it says they signed, well, could they sign? Would Motown have signed them while they were still under contract? Would they actually sign them? And so that's what I'm saying. It's like they put out good information, and I have heard that they signed with them at this time, but it's like, well, I don't know exactly. This is tricky stuff, you know? But that's the thing with Berry Gordy. Would Berry Gordy have taken a chance to be sued by another record label for this band? You know, would he have actually signed them and started working with them? It's just like, I don't know exactly. It's weird and shit, right? I don't think he would have. To me, it's like, that's too many obstacles. You got all this, they're signed to a frickin' other contract. It's all a bunch of kids. You've got Joe Jackson that they're going to have to deal with. And then Michael's the obvious talent because they don't need the other kids. The other kids aren't really the greatest singers, and yeah, they're a couple musicians and stuff, and it's a kid act. It ended up working out good and stuff, right? But when Berry Gordy is the businessman is looking at that, he's looking at it as a business, and he would have said, I'll take Michael. Okay, if any of them, he'll say, I'll take the kid. The kid's the obvious talent. I can do with the kid anything that I could have wanted to do with the rest of them. Why would I sign all of them and deal with Joe and all the whole family? It just, plus they're under contract to another record label. That's what I'm saying. All of those things combined makes me totally say there's no way. If the Jacksons were just a band that came for an audition and stuff, it's like, no way. Berry Gordy never would have signed that family. It would not have happened. Especially with them being under contract to another company. It's just crazy. So that's what they did. They waited for the Steeltown, because it was only a 1-year deal with the Steeltown. They still had like 6 months. They waited for that to expire. Then that's when the official contract got signed to Motown, because then they said they signed a 7-year deal. That's the official deal that they signed, and then that's when they became Motown artists, you know? But so here it says, the Jacksons passed the audition and signed with the label on July 26, 1968. After that, Motown booked the group to a benefit concert in Gary, Indiana on September 27th. Now, I've been looking for the date of this show, and that gives me the date here, but I was thinking this show took place before that July 26th thing, and that's what I thought. But now this is saying no. That the show that what I'm thinking of, it took place after that. Okay, so the concert in Gary on September 27, 1968, for the re-election of the city's mayoral Richard Hatcher. Okay. Other acts on the bills were fellow Motown acts Shorty Long and Gladys Knight and the Pips, whom had seen the Jackson 5 when they opened for them at the Regal Theater in December of 1967. And tried to get a representative from Motown to see them, to no avail. This was where the official Motown story began, of where Diana Ross first saw the group. But she was nowhere near Gary, Indiana at this time, but in Los Angeles doing a show with the Supremes. So that's the thing. It's like, wait, hold on. So they're saying that let me play you this clip here. Okay, so I've used this clip a lot trying to talk about the things that are going on and stuff, right? So here, I'm going to play this for you. Listen to this.
It's Diana Ross who kind of did it for you fellas, isn't it?
Yes, she started us off. We did a talent show in Gary, Indiana at Roosevelt High School, and the mayor guest was Diana Ross. She was sitting in the audience, and we did this show, and she liked it very much, and she came backstage and told us how much she liked it, and from there on...
How soon after that were you recording?
Oh, about 3 weeks.
Okay, so what they're saying is that that other article there said that Michael's lying right here. When Michael says here that Diana Ross was a special guest and she was in the audience and that she came back and told him that she liked it very much, the one thing that just said there said that that was a lie. Okay, it said that's a lie. And it's like, so it's like trying to figure this stuff out. It's like, I don't know. It's like, which is the truth now? Because Diana could have, if that show was during the daytime, Diana could have seen that show, got on a plane, flown to Los Angeles, and done her concert that night. You know, that could have happened. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, this stuff is weird and stuff, right? So right down there at the bottom, I'm going to read again there where it says, this was where the official Motown story began of where Diana Ross first saw the group, but she was nowhere near Gary at this time, but in Los Angeles doing a show with the Supremes, right? So it's like, God damn, this shit is freaking confusing and shit, right? I was like, God damn, this stuff is like, what the fuck is going on here and stuff, right? So the thing about how they say that they use Diana Ross to promote the Jackson 5, it's like, well, why would you need to do that? Why would you need to put her name on there? It's weird. Why wouldn't it just be the Jackson 5? Why all this Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5? Like, why would they go to the lengths of where they're having Michael tell they create this fake story that, oh, we're going to say that Diana was at that show, and Gary, and that she discovered the kids. It's like, and then Michael still, that show on the Mike Wallace, that video I just played you, that's in 1974. So that's at least 4 years after they've come out as a band. You know, they started in 1969, their album gets released. So we're at least 4 years past that, and Michael's still telling that lie. But when he tells it, he sure seems convincing to me that Diana Ross was at that show, right? So it's like, now it's like, I don't know. Was she at the show, or is that part of this lie that Motown had created because they were selling the idea of Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5? But it's like, why would they create that whole thing? Why would they even do that? But see, when you understand my story, that Diana Ross is actually the mother, to me, it's like, okay, the reason they had to create that story is because Diana Ross is Michael's mother, and Diana Ross was going to be spending a lot of personal time with Michael because that's what's going on. Like what they say when the Jacksons were living with Diana Ross, that Diana Ross would take Michael out alone. And I've got it proven at the places where Michael and her together alone, and Michael's in the audience alone, and Diana's calling him her son, that's my child, and she says everything I do is for him. And it's like, well, that's different. That's not that we're putting out a fake story, you know. It's like, that's real. She's telling you, no, everything I do is for him, you know. And it's just like, that's what I'm saying, is like, this story is so freaking confusing and shit. And it's like, I try my best to find the exact date so I can get the best thing of what's going on. But the problem is, I know a lot of other things that contradict the story of what they're saying. It's like, Motown's not that way. They're scandalous. They're going for the dollars and shit. And so, the Diana Ross story, it's like, well, doesn't it fit perfectly that they would use this cover-up of Diana Ross presenting the Jackson 5? Isn't that a perfect cover-up to explain why Diana Ross is spending so much time with Michael, which is what she did? And then because she's trying to regain the relationship as Michael being her lost child, you know, that she gave away. She abandoned Michael, and so the attention, because of that, I think that's how all the Diana Ross stuff develops, you know. And then where are the lies and where are the truth? It's hard to fucking know. It's hard to know actually what's going on. But like I said, I'm trying, and that's one thing with the Michael Jackson fans. It's like, I want them to try and debunk me, because what happens is that they give me a piece of information I can go search that, which is going to help clarify the whole picture and stuff. And they're not going to debunk my thing. Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's mom. There's no doubt about that. Now, I know I'm wrong about certain things here and there. And what I want the fans to do is like, well, if you've got information that you can say that I'm saying something wrong, I want you to tell me your information so then I can go get a better understanding of everything, and I can help clarify it, because that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to get the best story possible out here with the best evidence and the best facts and stuff. But like I said, I'm dealing with all this stuff, and it's hard to research this stuff. And then you got the fact that they're all these lies. They're lying their hat. There's all kinds of lies going on. And it's just like, fuck. So I'm dealing with all this stuff, and it's confusing and stuff. But within the process of when you see all this stuff, what you will see is that the lie develops much more as a better understanding of my story, that Diana Ross being the mother. You'll see that that's why these lies are being told. That's how they got started, because their reasons for how things got started and why things developed the way they did, you can see that that's wrong. Those are lies. And the only reason that this stuff all happened, the real reason it happened, is because Michael was given to the Jackson family from his real parents, Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. And that's how come that Joe Jackson tries to bring the kids back to Motown as soon as he could. Like, see, that's the first thing. Joe Jackson was trying to get the kids signed to Motown at first, but Berry Gordy was like saying, no, I'm not doing it, right? So Joe Jackson went and got the kids signed to another record company because they had some talent. They knew what they were, he knew what he had at that time. And so Joe Jackson then says, I'll go get them signed to a record company. But when he did that, that's when Berry Gordy said, oh, I have to take control of this. It wasn't like he's like signing a band, the Jackson 5, because it can show you there's too many obstacles here for him to sign that band. There was too many obstacles. There's too much shit. He would not have signed that band. But when the point comes where Joe Jackson's going to go out on his own and he's going to start doing shit on his own, that's when Berry Gordy realized, I need to have control over this. I cannot allow, now Joe's out there with that kid that we gave him, and Joe's going to do his own things, and Berry Gordy would have realized at that point, oh, I have a problem. See, it's not that he wasn't interested in the Jacksons and trying to, what Berry Gordy realized is that, oh, I've got a problem now. And right after he realizes he's got the problem, what happens? The Jacksons are signed to Motown. They bring them under their wing while they're still under contract at the Steeltown Records and shit, right? What you'll clearly see is that the facts are the facts, but my explanation of the real bigger picture of what's going on is actually the truer explanation to explain how all of these occurrences are happening. Okay, talk to you later.